So yeah, I want to thank you guys for having me up in Sudbury today. As my brief introduction would have stated, I'm from Ottawa, but I play golf professionally now, so I do live in Florida. So that's why I'm wearing a deep V-neck and a t-shirt, and I'm freezing right now. So bear with me. Don't. My skin's quite dry coming up here, but my story actually does tie in quite a bit to Sudbury, fittingly enough. I played a lot of golf tournaments here growing up, and then I dated a girl from Sudbury for a year, so I think the women in Sudbury are awesome. But my story has been, I'm very lucky that in the last chunk of time, last few years of my life, being partnered with Bell Let's Talk, people have began to learn a little bit about me and what I went through, my battles throughout my life with depression, some suicide attempts. And knowing kind of a little bit of what was going on today, I felt, in the 10, 15 minutes I'll talk to you, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more of 2011 on. I was hospitalized in 2011 for 2 suicide attempts that fall. And actually, it was in Sudbury. It was Easter of 2011. I came up here to visit my girlfriend and his family, and that was the first time I thought about taking my life again since I was 16 years old. So I was 27 at the time. So 11 years later, I had this relapse in a shower at a house just near the hotel I'm staying at. So it's kind of cool. Like it's quite surreal to be up in Sudbury to talk about this, because this is, at the moment, back in 2011, this is where it all ended, as it were for me. But so I was hospitalized in 2011. I had retired from golf, given up on the dream, and I was not in a good place. But then it was basically the day that I was hospitalized was the day one of this ongoing path to recovery, this ongoing path of healing. So here we are now, a cold February day in 2016, and October 2011 was like how this journey started for me. And I know we have a lot of, this is kind of providers, healthcare professionals, and the main thing I want you to take away from the last few years of my life is how lucky I got. Yes, I'm very lucky to be on the stage, like that's one thing, but I was hospitalized. The ER, the first person that evaluated me didn't think I was a risk. The second person was like, holy shit, we need to get him in here. Then 4 and 5 psychiatrists later, we need to get him off the medication he's on, and we need to change this. So I was in the ER, I was in the psych ward for a few days in the Civic in Ottawa, and my treatment, my care was incredible. I felt safe. I felt like I'd get better there. I was recommended a therapist. I walked out the hospital door and said, okay, this can't end. I want to share this story. Called this therapist that day. He had a cancellation the next day. So I started therapy the day after I was released from the hospital. That's incredibly lucky. I clicked with this therapist from the jump. As I've come to learn, that's rare too. And I had parents that were willing to pay for my $180 therapy. That's very rare too. So as I've spoken to certain groups that are more involved with the healthcare side of it, I really would love to see it where we can kind of change and get to a place where we're not going to rely on the luck that I got. Because yes, I'm lucky to be alive for 3 suicide attempts, and then I got even more lucky to get the proper treatment that allowed me to walk down this path that has me in Sudbury in 2016 telling this story. And I think that's the kind of takeaway of this. And I can kind of give you a little timeline of what my healing is now looking like, because we can talk about different parts of this journey with suicide. Well, I'm someone who, even listening to Harriet was tough for me because that could have been my mom. And I'm very lucky that I'm here. So it's like, okay, what can we do? How can we get it to the point where there's more and more people who go through what I went through, but get healthy and get happy and can openly talk about it? Because I'm not ashamed to talk about it whatsoever. Like, I don't think I'm courageous for being up here. It's just talking. Anyone who knows me, Sandy knows me very well. I'll talk your ear off for hours. Like, it's easy for me. But how it kind of looked was I retired from the game, started getting treatment, started getting healthy. I moved to Toronto. I got out of Ottawa, got a job, had to fully embrace that I was no longer a professional golfer. And that was probably the biggest thing for me. That was the hardest thing, the hardest hurdle to overcome, because that was my identity. That's what people knew me as. I'm the golfer. I was the golfer who tried to kill himself. Like, golf was always the thing that I tied myself to. And I had to remove myself from the game of golf because in my treatment, I realized I had 3 huge triggers for my depression and my suicide episodes: girls, golf, and my dad. So can't remove myself from all of those, but I took time in dealing with it. And I mean, I'm still single, but I'm more comfortable around girls. Like, it's not uncomfortable, but I know what girls aren't good for me and what are good for me. Doesn't mean I like act it out properly, but I know. So luckily I have some close female friends in my life to keep me in check and keep me from picking dumb ones, but I still do. But golf is the other trigger that I had to remove myself from. And I removed myself from professional golf for years, or about a year, and then went back into it with just like a complete, like, it's not who I am, and if I suck, it's okay, because I'm still alive. Luckily, I didn't suck enough, and I got my card back on PGA Tour Canada right when the Canadian Tour went bankrupt. PGA Tour bought it, and that was the catalyst that has me on this stage, is the PGA Tour. If anyone has seen this video, the PGA Tour wanted to do a profile on me in 2013, and that video was the first domino that fell in giving me like a public platform in Canada. And I still watch it now and it still blows me away. And then my dad, we have an incredible relationship now. He's proud of me, and it's the first, like, it took me, like, I say this very tongue-in-cheekly, but it took me a few suicide attempts and not golfing for my dad to finally realize my dad loved me and was proud of me. And my dad's a professional golfer who's always loved me and always been proud of me, but I didn't know these things. So these 3 triggers I worked through, and I continue to work through, because I still play golf professionally. I still play really shitty golf. I still miss cuts. I piss my dad off. Like, luckily I live in another country, and I'm single. Like, these things still happen. Like, the triggers don't go away, but I've learned how to kind of deal with them. And then when they aren't going well, I can remove myself from them. And a perfect example is the first time I was on Off the Record, Michael asked me about a story. This was off stage, where I withdrew from a tournament because I relapsed playing a golf tournament. And I was like, you know what? My health's more important. So I withdrew. Someone broke their ankle, withdraws from a tournament, you get it. But if someone stands on the road and wants a car to hit them like I did, people don't understand that. But I was like, hey, my health's more important. And these are the things that I've been learning. And it's been a process. It's been difficult because that video in 2013, my ego said yes. Like, I'm a professional athlete. I have an ego. Like, I will call a spade, and the PGA Tour says, hey, you've written some blogs, there's been newspaper articles, can we show you on a national level? I'm like, hell yeah. Like, raise your hand. I'm not gonna raise my hand, my armpits are sweaty and gray. Raise your hand if given the opportunity to be on national TV, would you turn it down? Like, you know, like, such a minority. I'm like, yep, single, this is gonna look good on Tinder. And like, it did, it was perfect. In America, show a picture of TSN, they don't get it. But up here, but the thing is, that sharing was actually the hardest thing, and it set me back so much because I shared too soon. I know, especially with Let's Talk, we want to get people talking about these things, but we still have to be very mindful of a comfort level. And I was thrown into a public spotlight sharing, and I was not ready to share. So it set me back, and it made things really, really difficult for me. But I didn't have a choice. I kind of had to find my feet and roll with it. And I got very lucky. Like, ego propelled me to share when I shouldn't have. And it got me uncomfortable. It made me relapse. It made me go back on medication. So it was like this huge setback 2 years into this process of healing and recovery. But it was also, like I said, first domino that fell in allowing me to have like a pretty, like, I'm more famous in Canada for talking about suicide than I am about golf. Like, I was on a freaking billboard here. Like, not because I'm golfing. Like, it's just like, so clearly it did some good, but it took me some time to realize I needed to kind of process what's going on and stop exploiting my suicide attempts in an effort to get sponsorship to play golf. Like, that's what I was doing because I didn't really know any better. And luckily I had a sports psychologist, I had a psychologist, I had my family we all talked about these things and we became very open about these things in 2013. And that kind of, like if you're picking up, like I'm saying, like there's pieces that have me where I am. Like it's a very holistic approach, and it seems every few years a new piece comes into my life that allows me to achieve an even higher quality of life, an even higher sense of joy and pride almost. I'm proud of what I went through. I still am depressed. I still think about taking my life, but I'm not ashamed of it, because as I've been healing, why be ashamed of it? Like I said on Let's Talk Day, like we often, we can sit and be like, hey, this time I broke my leg, this time I did this, and I have this scar, I have this scar. You can't see my scars. But I'm very proud to be like, hey, these are the ones I have too. And then kind of the most recent thing, so if we're going 2011 to now, the most recent thing that's come into my life that has allowed me to achieve this level of life is meditation. I practice mindfulness, and it's been the next big piece that's getting me to a place where I'm so comfortable with who I am. So for me, how I achieve this health, how I achieve a level of comfort, how my family and friends can rest easy when I say don't worry about me, is because we have this very kind of holistic approach where therapy, medication, vulnerability, like an open line of communication with my family and friends, and mindfulness and meditation, like these are the things that I use to be healthy. Because as an athlete, if I want to be a better golfer, I'm going to take all the resources I can. When my club company makes new golf clubs that are going to allow me to hit the golf ball better, I'm going to use that resource. If I can go into the gym and change how my body works to make my golf swing better and make me have a longer career, I'm going to use that resource. If I have a better support psychologist or caddy, I'm going to use all these things to help me be better at what I do. But golf's just what I do. It's not who I am. I want to be a healthy, happy individual who's depressed. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I have depression. I take a pill for it every morning. So these are the things that I use that I'm proud of, because they're resources. Why would I turn them away if they're allowing me a level of health? And as you can tell, if all of these things allow me a level of health, maybe the last piece I'm hopefully will be that girl. Like maybe I won't be single in time. I mean, I'm not getting any younger. So I think that's all. Like, as you can tell, I take it very lightly. Like it's pretty tongue in cheek because it's part of who I am. I'm not embarrassed anymore. I'm not ashamed of it. And I want you to take that away from me sharing the last few years of my life, is that there's bits and pieces to health, and we all can play a role in helping someone or helping ourselves achieve these resources and get to these resources. So, yeah. Thank you.